I think since that and just also doing some acting classes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what you guys are just like in wardrobe and in hair, and the AD's coming in and yelling about time, and like the lens isn't working also, and then
to just go.
Yeah, and action. Give me that award-winning performance right now.
And then do it 10 more times. Oh, and sorry, we're actually going to use it for the close-up next.
Focus was off. Let's go again.
No.
Oh, that one's not going to make it in the edit, even though it's your best one, you know?
Yeah. This is the Cinematography for Actors podcast.
More than a podcast, Cinematography for Actors is a vibrant community devoted to bridging the gap between talent and crew. Each week, our show offers transparent, insightful conversations with industry leaders. We unveil the magic behind the scenes, from candid discussions about unique filmmaking processes to in-depth technical exploration. Join us in unraveling the intricacies of filmmaking one episode at a time. It's more than just cameras and lenses. We aim to inspire, educate, and empower as we peel back the curtain on the art of effective storytelling. Now on to the episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cinematography for Actors podcast here at the CFA studio in Los Feliz, just above Hollywood. I am here with my wonderful co-hosts, Haley Royal and Brianna Wing, and Bri is going to introduce us to our very special guest today that I can feel how excited she is.
It is great.
So I'm like, I want to like almost keep going because I know it's like the longer. She's just like, no, it's like, we're going for a walk now, we're going for a walk now, we're taking so long. Exactly.
You're getting
Bri,
those.
Yeah.
who is here?
I am so excited to introduce to you someone I've known for over a decade, which is crazy. We met at Chapman University's Dodge College of Film and Media Arts. And our guest today is RJ Collins, a writer-director who exploded onto the scene right after graduating from film school with the directing collective Everdream. Their Tesla spec commercial went viral, garnered millions of views, and took the ad world by storm. He went on to helm campaigns for the biggest brands in the world before pivoting into narrative. His miniseries Simi Valley was nominated for Best Drama at the Streamies. RJ's latest script, Vapor, was the grand prize winner of Screencraft features screenplay. I'm so excited to have him in here. I'm like shaking like a dog. Features screenplay competition and is currently being developed alongside Oscar-winning screenwriter Diana Ossana. Am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. His current directorial projects include Dropping, which was just at Holly Shorts, a thriller written by Anna Klassen, and Left Alone, starring RJ Mitty and Jeff Nordling. RJ, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Woo!
I feel like I should have not been here when you recorded that. Like, it's just too flattering. So, I'm behind the camera for a reason, you know?
I do want to talk about the transition from film school to your first job.
Yeah.
And the relationships you made in film school and if you still work with them. So can you talk a little bit about how you created Everdream and then the transition from commercial to narrative and what was going through your head and then what was going through your schedule and your life to do all of that?
Yeah. Okay. 100%.
Big question.
No. I'm just I'm trying to get the like linear. When I first graduated from film school, another shout out, a super good friend of ours, Chris Bryant.
Oh my God, I love Chris, and he's actually going to be on the show.
Oh,
we just haven't scheduled it yet. Yeah.
Okay, so Chris is like the best. So there was this the equipment room at Chapman where all the students would like come and rent their gear. I worked in that room with Chris and all of these other filmmakers that were just about to graduate, and I was a younger kid. So when they graduated and I graduated, I reached back out to Chris, and Chris was like production coordinating on like huge movies. He was like, "Oh, dude, yeah, I can get you a PA job on Oz the Great and Powerful reshoots." And so I got plugged in with Chris. Chris did me a solid and just like vouched for me. I didn't know anything. Like I showed up on the set and I was like, they're like, okay, all the words, like here's your walkie, here's whatever, like and I knew some of it, but I went on a string of Oz the Great and Powerful, Hangover 3. I was just a set PA on these big movies. And while that was happening, I was trying to get my directing career up off the ground, and we were getting $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to make these tiny little music videos where we couldn't even pay ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and 3 other directors from Chapman basically realized we had little snippets of really impressive stuff from our thesis films. Like we had a CG hummingbird in one of our films, and we had, like a really cool visual moment. And there was this company called The Mill at the time that is still huge. They mostly do CG now, but they would put together a reel every year and put out a new reel. And it was like this moment in like the Vimeo era of like filmmakers where people were just like, oh my God, it's so impressive. So we were like, well, we could cut like a really impressive 60-second version of this and make it look like we're this young, like Mill-esque company, but let's just put it under one name and put all of our eggs into the same basket, and we'll be 4 times as impressive and look like a single entity. So we started doing that. And at the time we were doing that, we're like, well, we also need a commercial to go along with this, because we can't just use our thesis films and stuff. People are going to ask to see. So Joe Sill, who is like crazy impressive, like VFX director, we all kind of huddled together and realized, well, Tesla doesn't have any advertising. Elon Musk is very vocal. It's like, we're never going to pay for advertising. The car sells itself. All these other filmmakers were making fan films, and we felt like we could do a much better version of that film or of those commercials. So we found a family member like up in Northern California that had a Tesla and a cool house.
And this was what year again?
This was 2013.
Wow. So really
right out of film school.
a
year out. Yeah,
so
I graduated
we
2012.
saw them all over the place. Yeah, it was like,
they were still really
and this is also kind of before branded content really like took off. Like digital wasn't really a thing. That the agencies and the brands hadn't really figured out how to take these broadcast budgets and then make digital content. So we made the spot just thinking we'd show it around town. We had a friend who was low level at Tesla. We sent it to him. He sent it to 5 or 6 friends at Tesla. It worked its way all the way up to Elon. Elon tweeted it out and was like, I'm still never paying for an ad, but if I did, this is the one I would buy.
Okay.
Ad world freaked out because half the advertising industry was like, these punk kids are taking food off our table. They're going to destroy.
It is so good. It is so good. It's
I can't wait to see it.
Inspirational. Yeah,
I do.
We'll have to link to it.
We have to put it on the carousel.
Yeah. And I do. It's really insane. And the truth of it is too, I think Joe is such a gifted visual effects artist that for the budget we did, we spent $1,500 of our own money. And I think people were impressed by the story and it was really compelling, but it was also like, how are these kids doing like VFX like this, that we could essentially put this on TV?
Totally.
So that kind of overnight changed our life because the ad world freaked out.
What was that like? So you wake up, or is it like suddenly someone he tweets it out and then or retweets it? Guys, I'm not on X, but retweets it, and then suddenly you're getting all these DMs, or it's slowly gaining traction. Like, what is that feeling, or what actually what happens in that moment?
It was like a combination of a lot of people in the advertising PR space, Ad Age, Ad Week, were like chomping at the bit to get the story behind what the hell happened.
Were they reaching out to you guys directly?
Fantastic. Great.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were. And at the same time that was happening, we were getting weird calls from like people that weren't really even in that space. Like people in the, like, I think like a Warner Brothers exec reached out, different people reached out, and a lot of people were basically saying like, hey, because the misconception was that we had won Tesla's business. Like that Tesla all of a sudden was cutting a huge check. And so like the biggest advertising agencies in town were like, holy shit, these kids just won this business that's worth a lot of money.
Totally.
And we were smart enough to not say otherwise, like really explicitly. And we also were smart enough to not credit any individual director. So all was behind. There was like this crazy thing that happened, and then there was this like mystery box that was Everdream. And what created Tesla was inside that mystery box, which was not tangible to anyone. So it was like, if you want to work with us and do what we did for Tesla, you just have to plug into this little box that was literally us all living in the same house and basically working out of a garage together.
Fantastic.
We love that.
But it was so that happened. That Troy Carter, who at the time was Lady Gaga's manager, amongst like John Legend, many others, and also was a big venture capitalist. He was the one person that we met with that was basically like, look, you guys are doing some like magic. I don't want to change anything. If anything, I actually don't even really want to like be involved outside of the fact that I want to introduce you to anyone you want to meet. I know every CMO, I know every agency, every brand, TV and film, like I know Will Smith, like whoever you guys want to meet. And I want a portion of the company, but I also want to put $0 into this because I don't want to blow you guys up and have you guys burn out like most tech companies or startups. And I also don't want to like take anything out of the company. Like you guys just keep doing what you're doing.
But your network's the biggest thing. So that's awesome.
Totally. And he gave us, which was basically a gym. He had a he had a building across the street that he had a gym in that he had just taken out, and he had this company called Pop Water. He's like, you guys can incubate in the gym. So
Cool.
basically he gave us like 20 desks, and we incubated in that gym for like 2 years. And
What was it like walking in that
built
first
the
day?
company. Like dumb. Like it was like like in the sense that like it literally felt like, you know, the inmates were running the asylum,
Right.
kind of, and that at any point, like they were going to show up and be like, all right, guys, jigs up.
You're like, I guess I'll put my desk here. Like what, like, let me open my laptop and we'll just see what's up. Wow. Yeah.
I think truthfully, the thing that is the most, probably the most important thing to mention about Everdream and the conceit of Everdream that's carried over into everything I'm trying to do in film and have not been very successful at trying to synthesize it. It's been a very iterative process. And I think dropping is actually probably the first time I've gotten the closest to it, is that the idea behind Everdream was really that the advertising industry and the way that they worked with filmmakers and studios and television networks is that there's kind of this like idea for, there's this brief, this creative brief, there's these storyboards, there's this idea for what they want to do. Then they send it out to 3 directors, and those directors compete against one another, and one director gets selected. Sometimes it's more than 3 directors. What we thought was like, well, wait a second, we're all young filmmakers. We're all trying to learn and get better and grow. What if the 3 directors that were competing were us? And what if we were competing against one another? And to push it even a step further, what if we were all actually helping each other on our ideas? So if something came in and I had an idea and you had an idea and you had an idea, if our ideas were similar, we would just team up.
Right.
But because we would be helping each other to the point to where, okay, let's squash our egos and just do this together. If your idea was different enough from us, we would all help and actually workshop and essentially do like a writer's room for ideas. And what it did was, as the company grew and more directors got involved, these 22, 23-year-old filmmakers were coming up with these insane ideas because we had a very diverse group of people that were all weighing in, not only from different backgrounds, but from different experience, like DP, VFX artist, everyone had, so there was no holes that were in any of our concepts, or at least the least amount possible. So the way I used to pitch it to people when we were working with brands was like, you're not hiring a 22-year-old director. You're hiring like a 150-year-old director because we're all working.
Combined experience.
Yeah, we have more experience than anyone.
Yeah. Which is true.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so sick when that happens and you can get that many brains in a room. I love that so much.
It's the best. And I feel that energy from Bree the second we got back together. I feel it. And you guys are like getting a little emotional because it's just like cool to like be in those environments with those people.
Absolutely. Because that can also, I imagine, for like your transition into different worlds within filmmaking, that can get taken away sometimes when brands get involved or money gets involved or things like that. And so with you starting with that collective mind, that's such a beautiful way to enter the industry. From the get-go. So that's awesome.
And the truth was, it didn't work in advertising because we reached the point where we started getting bigger budgets, we started getting bigger deals, and we were no longer allowed the creative freedom. And that actually really, what ended up happening is we reached the point where we had scaled beyond our ability to scale down with employees and office space and stuff. And it actually tore the culture apart by accident. We were too young and too inexperienced to recognize what was really happening. With hindsight, what I've realized is like, you can't, like, there's this hard thing. It's really hard to build a collective, conscious, empowering space and also maintain people's individuality and their individual artistry. And I think that Everdream was a step too far because we were putting people too much in the melting pot where they weren't able to have their own. And not that the process was, but actually like the credits and like the fact that when we got to 12 and 13 directors and it was still credited as Everdream, even though 2 or 3 directors were doing one project, it got to the point to where it just wasn't sustainable. And so I've taken that into the film and TV space now. And I think that really it's across the board. Like we could get so far into so many other elements of like giving back end to every crew and cast member and making those indie budgets work on the business side. But I also think just from a creative process point, we were talking a little bit about that upstairs, is like, I think there is this antiquated way of making movies where there's these kind of efficiencies of pre-production, and when the writer weighs in and when the director weighs in and when the actors get to have a seat at the table within certain confines.
Absolutely.
And I think it's actually pretty wrong most of the time.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're hiring great artists in each regard, they're all trying to tell the same story within
Bingo. Love that.
the role that they're bringing to the table, which actually bleeds much further over what the box that we've defined, which is really a business efficiency. It's not an artistic efficiency, right? And so I think to actually like get away from the abstract, like with dropping, I don't know where we should take this really.
We can take it anywhere organically, whenever we
this.
want. Yeah.
I think that we designed that process to give the actors especially, but also everyone down to like our PAs on the set, the ability to be so invested in the story we're trying to tell that, you know, some of my favorite things in that movie were when people were looking over the shoulder of sometimes not even me and being like, hey, like we talked about this on the tech scout, like a PA would mention like, oh, that rope isn't supposed to be hanging out. And just that space that was created where we could take 30 seconds to literally address any raised hand. And people recognize too that we're on a film set, we're trying to be efficient, we're trying to do, so that raised hand needs to be something that's hopefully of value.
CFA marketing rep. Are you talking about bridging the gap between talent and crew? Because we're all here to serve the same story.
Yes.
And the more we can be on the same page, the better the story or product is going to be.
I think I actually might be, I'm like the biggest like anti-director because I actually think that the thing I'm often trying to do is deconstruct the directorial, like the director construct. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually like bashing that in order to be the best director I can be. But people are so they're so acclimated to this. Okay, you are like the genius and you have the vision, and we're all just here to kind of like show up and like get on board with it. And I'm like, actually, I'm just a curator,
right?
To most, like I'm here. Right. I brought all of us to the table. And there needs to be somebody that ultimately is saying yes or no just for efficiency. But the truth is, like, the yes to the no doesn't mean I'm a dictator. It means getting to the yes or getting to the no is a conversation. It's a collaboration. And we're kind of making those decisions.
You're making it efficient and streamlined so you can actually have a product at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's that director construct, right? The hierarchy. It actually puts so much pressure on a director to be perfect and to notice everything, because if you are a PA and you feel like you can't raise your hand and be like, hey, on the tech scout there was this shouldn't be hanging down, everyone just assumes, oh well, the director didn't say anything. Like the director probably saw it, and then maybe the director didn't see it, and then it's a problem in the end. And all the PAs are like, well, I saw it, but I didn't feel like I was allowed to say anything. And it's so much pressure at the top. That's probably why actually I don't like the pressure.
Let's use this as a learning opportunity for a lot of directors listening, maybe newer directors or directors that want to adopt this mentality but don't know how. How do we practically apply this on set so it doesn't get messy and not everyone is chiming in? But how do you create that space on set to allow it?
Yeah, I did one thing that I can't imagine, like, and it's crazy because every person that was involved in the film. So, okay, so just to get like into the tangibles real quick for dropping. So dropping was like Kickstarter money and private money and friends and family money. Like we really scrapped this thing together. So we were on a very tight budget, but you know, the film takes place in the woods. It's a lot of stunts, and so it was crazy. We ended up cutting this deal with this summer camp up in Crestline, California. And we basically took over the camp. We lived in the cabins. We ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the mess hall. It was like the most like idyllic experience ever.
Fantastic.
Sounds so fun, right? That sounds incredible.
Oh my God.
It was like the most special experience. We became a family, and we did a few things. We had prep ad nauseum with the technical teams, but we did a table read over Zoom with our actors, where I basically was like, look, I don't want you guys to like go super ham on like trying to give like the performance you're going to do on the day. I do want you guys to just digest the script, ask me questions, let's talk through, let's shape these characters. And when we came to the table, it was more about understanding, are we like hitting the right marks tonally? And so we were able to do that table read, and I was able to just dial in slightly like kind of the tone of this dynamic of these 5 kids together. And because there's like there's more of a comic relief character who kind of like lets the air out. I feel like with suspense, levity is actually the most important, because if it's all suspense, there's no breath the audience gets to take. So we were able to dial that in. And I think I came up in the like Spielberg fandom era where it was like, okay, like the perfect dolly shot, and like David Fincher is like so precise and like all this stuff. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get believable performances from actors if I'm having dolly track and marks and them hitting things. So I didn't want to tell them where to stand. I didn't want them to ever be worried about where the cameras were. I just wanted to focus on the scene, the story, the emotional moments, and the team would just shape around them.
Okay, we are stoked to shout out our audio sponsor, Deity Microphones. Their S-Mic 2 Pro shotgun mics have impeccable sound clarity, directionality, headphone monitoring, and a user-friendly design. And we're proud to launch our studio with them. Our goal is to bring you educational gems every episode, and with these mics, you can listen to the best quality audio possible wherever you are. To learn more about using Deity mics for your own podcasting, voiceover, or filming needs, go to deitymic.com.
So we shot all natural light. There was no like lighting rigs and like crazy stuff on set. We had these 2 really small cameras built. And before we started shooting, we did a full day of rehearsals with the whole keys. So every department head and the actors. We didn't rehearse performance or anything. It was basically just, okay, so, and we walked through it in the order we were going to shoot it, so that or in the order of the story, so that the actors could orient, okay, when we're in these trees and we're being chased by the man with the shotgun, he's coming through those trees. This is where you guys are running from. You guys can land somewhere around here. And this is generally what's going on. Like, Devin, your character's kind of at this point. And so we basically just walked them through the emotional arcs of their characters. We could ask questions. The department heads could say, oh, like, where is the special effects thing need to be rigged, and where does this mean? So on the day when we were shooting, no one really had to talk to each other very much. And what that allowed is the actors weren't waiting for like crazy logistical conversations. And like, I just wanted to walk them into set and start shooting and basically never stop shooting. And I also didn't even want them to think about shooting. Like, if I could have, I wouldn't have called action and cut. And I think, but what that did is it allowed them to have enough orientation of like kind of where they were in the story, because we were shooting out of sequence. But then it also allowed us to just focus on performance.
This is such a gift, I think, to an actor who, I mean, has gone through drama school, or an actor trained in theater, or an actor who is, you know, generally trained more in like the idea of like, what are you feeling? Feel your feelings, be honest, you know, because so many times, and I mean, the basis of cinematography for actors is the technical stuff, the precise, the dolly moves, the marks, the things like that can really get an actor who hasn't practiced that type of precision in the technical side, all, you know, they can get really bogged down by those kind of notes. So it's such a cool consideration that you kind of dropped a lot of the technical for an actor to be able to do that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think truthfully, it's actually selfishly for me, because if I don't believe what's happening, I don't think an audience will believe it, you know? And I think it's hard for me to believe. I often don't believe a lot of really like fabricated performances. And it's not because I think that the actors aren't doing a really great job. It's just that because I know how the sausage is made, if I can kind of see through the mechanics, it turns my brain on in a way that shouldn't be on when I'm watching a film. And the best movies, I mean, look, there are like really amazingly crafted, like you think about like Denis Villeneuve, like so many of his movies are like so precise and stuff, and he gets incredible performances, and I really don't know how he does it when he's doing, obviously he's working with insane actors and they have so much time. But at this point in my career, the only way I know how to do it is to basically, and I took some acting classes too when I was
Brilliant. That's great.
at film school and one after. And I think that I was just like, man, if I had to do 50 takes of walking into this room and doing this thing, starts to become a play. And I think that
you lose some, I mean, I was going to say you lose some truth, and part of the craft we work on is making the 50th take just as truthful as the first, if we are doing 50 takes, but that is a skill that you work on. And so it's just something I know for me as an actor, I think about all the time. How many takes of this audition am I going to do? I can decide that if it's a self-tape, but when I get on set, I never know how many takes we're going to have to do. So it's that like mental and physical calibration to be energy-wise prepared to do 50 takes if we have to for whatever reason, but not conserve so much energy so the first take isn't worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right.
And I also think the thing that's tricky is like at that point, you've also read the script 100 times. You've had a million conversations about it. You may have even done a performance rehearsal where you've already like kind of put some foot on the pedal of like connecting to it. And so I just personally think a lot of that stuff is super dangerous for everyone involved, because I don't want to show up on set and I want to understand that we're still telling a story. Like it's not a documentary. But I want to almost get as close to it being real for me and the actor and all of the technicians and the production designer and the DP and all those people. And I think, I mean, I've been really inspired recently by what Oren Soffer, I just want to shout him out. He's the cinematographer, did The Creator. He co-DP'd it with Greg Fraser, but he was the one physically on set with Gareth Edwards. And they did some crazy stuff on that movie where they did not call action and cut. They would do 30-minute uncut takes. They were lit 360. They never had to wait on things. And they've both been talking so much about how making movies is like 100 and something years old.
Right.
And the assembly line and the process hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's just because as humans, we need things to be categorized and digestible. But I think the truth is, as artists and like storytellers, and I am constantly trying to give specifically the actor every advantage that they can possibly have, because I really think like we're all here trying to tell this story, but if the actors aren't believing what they're doing and the performance isn't there and they're not connecting, nothing works. None of this money or these lights or the fancy cameras or any of the stuff we have matters. And I think that there's this weird, almost like fetish that a lot of filmmakers have with like the toys and
The
like
gear,
feeling cool and like being on
I shot on
set
these
and, like,
lenses for the first time. Oh, I'm shooting like, you know, with this new LUT that I've developed and I worked on for 3 years, and it's my LUT.
Exactly.
Speaking from DP territory of the conversations I find myself in with others sometimes.
This is like, there's such a beauty in like versatility of methods as well, right? Like there's really no right way. Like what you're saying is the type of like consideration you bring for an actor to make sure that they're able to tell the story to the best of their ability. And then what we're bringing also is like a consideration for the filmmaker, right? Where the actor can do this thing and learn all of these technical things so that when they are in the position of being on set with someone who's like more excited about the gear or like believes that their method is the way they tell the story through the gear, through using the gear, they can make that consider for that. It's collaborating both ways, which can be so beautiful if you can understand that there are many different methods and understand how to collaborate within each different method.
Now I'll ask you a technical question for the way that you shoot.
Yeah.
Do you shoot at a higher resolution or a little wider so that you can reframe in post because you are doing stuff not on the fly, but you're having less technical limitations around your shot design?
No.
Got it. Cool.
No, and I we probably should have sometimes, but you know, I actually didn't even have a monitor for a portion of certain scenes because Greg Cotton, who's the DP I've been working with since film school, Bree
Love Greg.
well. He's literally brilliant and the sweetest man. And I just want to, just hang out with him 24/7. I love him and his wife, and like just beautiful human. But he's kind of got this engineering mind, this engineering background. He actually created a suite of apps that is he started the leading film emulation app, like the Daniels use and everything everywhere at once. And so we kind of we almost figured out what we wanted to do story-wise, and then we built the technical approach. So the cameras were so small and so lightweight, and they were on zooms.
So you could reframe quickly, or you can change up your shots or go in tighter really quick and things like that. Yeah.
And then we had him, Arjun Prakash, and Andrew Finch operating, which are like very incredible camera operators. And
love Andrew.
Yeah.
And you're saying incredible because they're able to anticipate and to reframe on the fly and understand the motivation of character and get you within the shot where you need to be.
They're like, basically, I think the beautiful thing about working with them is they're also cinematographers and directors in their own right. And so these were all my friends from film school. I basically called in every favor for this. And this was probably the proudest thing I've directed, because I was able to deploy that same process for like Andrew and Arjun and Brian White, our first AC, who's also an amazing director. And they all like read the script and asked a lot of questions, and we talked about the vision and what we were trying to achieve, and we built the package around that. But so at the point where we were shooting, Andrew and Greg and Arjun and Brian, they all knew exactly what story we were trying to tell.
We have some exciting news. CFA has teamed up with We Make Movies to get you a discount on production management services, including access to comprehensive production insurance and workers' comp for your next shoot. Visit wemakemovies.org/insurance and use code CFA23 on your intake form for 10% off your quote.
So at that point, like, I feel similar to the way when you work with actors, you at some point, like, they become the custodians of the role and of the character. Like, I've taken it to a point and now it's literally yours. And you are the like authority now. And I'm here to make sure that we're on the right track to tell the story, but the beating heart of the moment to moment is not mine anymore.
And that's why you chose them to come in, because you trust them with that, with that vision.
And even further than that, I think like with certain, because this was a really unique thing, because we cast these 5 kids, they all had really specific identities on the page, and some of them are like spot on, and some of them brought, like Anthony Norman, who played Brahm, he brought this softness and this empathy to that character that's not on the page, and that we actually were, in the beginning, we were like, man, is this wrong? Like, is he's kind of supposed to be scarier, and he's supposed to have this intimidation factor? And he played this kind of brooding teenager that also cared about his stepsister. And so there were these really soft moments where he was like protective, that was not on the page and was never intended. And when we were shooting it and we were just emotionally connecting what was happening, we're like, oh my God, that's so much more heart-wrenching, because he cares about her. And this is like real danger. And so, to go back to the initial question though, is that I think the same way we hand over the authority to the actors, like the camera operators, I really, unless I'm operating the camera, and I'm not ever going to be a better camera operator than them, technically, they're emotionally connecting to something 3 feet in front of them. As a DP, I'm sure if you've operated, like, you've experienced, it's a very exhilarating thing to be operating a camera, because you're so like present. And so they would be doing things that I never would have directed them into, and I'd kind of be like, oh wow, like that's hitting me.
It's once again that trust, it's like the crew you bring on, you're able to let go, or able to have them a part of that conversation, because at the end of the day, like, it's almost like, my dad said this to me when I was young and it really offended me, but I think it's really relevant right now, is like, everyone feels like they have a lot of control, but you're controlling how big the bubble is of what is allowed to be said within it, because you've trusted people that are probably supporting your vision or have the technical expertise or creative ideas that you need in order to make that film. So you're like controlling the bubble that people exist within, where they're giving ideas.
And I don't
Stanford said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was being
Is that it?
Stanford, my father. Yeah, I was being reprimanded.
I
was like, he was like, you think you have control? I control the bubble in which you exist in. And I was like, and my like perception of life was like always different.
Oh my God.
And it's like the bowl in which you swim in as like a fish. But I think about that as like a director. It's like you can give so much freedom, but at the end of the day, like, you know what you're doing by hiring these people. And it's because they are bringing something to the film that you want. And so it's great.
Yeah. And I actually think, like, to even push it one step further, I almost think that I'm hiring them to share in the vision. Like, I don't know, like, this is like maybe just like I feel like I almost shouldn't be a director. Like all the directors are gonna be like, this guy is just really good. I think that, like, I actually don't think there's this idea that the director like knows everything all the time.
Right.
And I think the truth is I'm actually hiring people that I think are going to, that I really believe are going to help find the answers together. And so to that point, like, it's really becomes a shared vision. It's like a group vision, because I think that there's this idea that, like, all the collaboration, and I mean all the way through shooting, all the way through post, like Esther Sokolow, who's also a Chapman alum, she's like, she's been an assistant editor for a really long time for Andy Muschietti. And I just have to shout her out, because literally this movie would still be in post if it wasn't for her. But she is actually now editing, I don't know if I can actually say what she's editing. She's editing some really big thing for HBO Max right now. She finally got promoted, and she deserves all of it. And I love her. And I want
we love moments like that, don't we? When people in our like network or community or friends just like grow.
Like have a win. We're like, it's like any win that somebody I love and care about has. I'm like, that's my win. I'm carrying that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to know you. I'm proud of you. I want to keep supporting you and lifting you up.
Well, because we talked about this too. It's a thing that, and I think a lot of people share this, is like, as artists who are literally throwing ourselves off the cliff every day to achieve our dreams, and we're facing financial hardships amongst everything it's a huge sacrifice. When one of your friends like wins that you love and adore and you believe in so wholeheartedly, it actually starts to sustain your worldview that people can achieve their dream.
Absolutely. It gives you this newfound energy to get through the next week, the next month, to be like,
you're like, I'm not crazy. People can, and it doesn't have to be your dream being achieved, but if the people that you're, connected to start to succeed, you're like, oh, like this is a real thing. I'm not just, delusional about this.
It does happen. It happens to people you know.
Yeah, we were just talking. Bree has a really cool win. I don't know if we could say on the podcast, but that is
the commercial.
Yeah, we will talk around it for now. But
Bree booked something big.
Something great that I'm really excited about and proud of. That felt like a major win for me. And and
when it comes out, I can't wait for us to like play it and do a breakdown, like an actor's commentary on that, to talk about your experiences. That'll be great.
Gosh,
So, but like when I tell people, everybody is like, oh my God, they're truly, genuinely so happy for me. And then there's like this endless loop of like, happy, excited. And then we're both like even more inspired to do whatever the path is that we're on to do.
It's a constant motivation and shared journey, and that's why I think at CFA we're always promoting community. And that's because your success is attributed to like your community and how you build it out and who you surround yourself with. And so it sounds like you surround yourself with an incredible crew and cast and community constantly.
Yeah, I think we were talking a little bit about this too, is that when I was right out of film school, I think I was so blindly ambitious that I was trying to latch on to people or work with people that were solely I thought were going to succeed. Like I was like, oh, these people are going to succeed. They're going to be successful, whatever.
Let me stay with them the whole
your
time.
cart so that they take you with them.
Or just like trying to build, like that's how I was building my community.
Yeah.
And
even if you didn't like that person as a person.
Well, and I don't think I was going as far as like, I don't like them, but I think they're going to be successful. It was more that I was just prioritizing, like the entry point into the relationship was like, oh, I think they're a really talented DP. I think they're really talented, whatever. And I think I've come to the point to where I do it the opposite way now, where finding talented people, especially in LA, is so easy. Finding really good humans, and not even to say that the people are that you don't connect with on this level are bad humans, but just finding those people like on your frequency, like that you're cosmically
like your DP.
Exactly.
Like you can hang out with them 24/7, you know?
Totally. And even Brie, like
Yeah.
when she texted me that she'd booked that thing, I was just like, yeah, duh, dude. Like the universe is here for you kind of thing. You know, like I can feel from all you guys, it's just this like thing where it's like the energy around you wants you guys to win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We believe that.
Yes. Yes, RJ. Yes,
Thank
correct.
you. Yes.
Yes.
But I feel like if you're really just emotionally present, you can walk into a room or have like a 5-second or a 15-minute coffee with someone and you can feel that energy. It's palpable.
Totally.
And I think that's the thing I'm addicted to now.
Yeah.
And so half the time I'm going all in on people like that before I even really know how talented they are.
Yeah.
And because I also think talent is this kind of like silly thing where talent can be cultivated.
Yeah.
I would rather I've been assistant directing commercials specifically because going off and directing a commercial is so all encompassing. And I'm really trying to focus on writing and directing and making movies
in the narrative area.
In the narrative fully. Like commercials are really actually existentially hard for me to direct because to not unpack it too much, but just advertising, using storytelling to sell things that
and
often I don't feel great about. Yeah.
You
exactly.
know, so you have people over your shoulder constantly being like, I don't know, actually.
And it's not about the story.
Yeah.
And that hurts me on like a very deep level. And so I've been assistant directing for a lot of directors I really adore and just working with crews I love. And I just first AD'd this commercial for Papermate, which was a blast. I can't say who we did it with, but it was this influencer. She's such a sweetheart. I can't wait for everyone to see it. She was like there with her family and it was just really special. But I needed to bring on a second AD and all of the people that I normally work with in this capacity were completely booked. And so I had just worked on another project where these recent film grads from FSU had moved out here like 4 weeks ago. And this young girl who was working in art department. She's like, I really want to be a camera PA and I want to be a DP. And like, I'm out here with all my friends and some of them want to AD and some of them want to do this. So I called her and I just said, hey, who's your friend that wants to AD? And I needed to hire someone within like 90 minutes. Like production was like, we're going to just hire someone if you don't have anyone. Cause I had been dragging my feet because no one was available.
Yeah.
And I just called this young kid, Landon. He literally moved out here like 3 weeks ago.
Wow. Incredible.
It's his first job in LA ever. And I just I had a 15-minute conversation with him. He was like, I want to be an AD. I want to learn. I want to sponge yourself up. And I just connected to that energy. And I was like, all right, dude, you're hired. And I just was like, I hope this kid isn't like terrible. He was so on top of it. We had like 2-hour phone calls leading up to it. He had all these questions about the schedule and the call sheet and how she brought in a set and like what I needed him to do and all this stuff. And I'm literally like looking forward to the day to where I can hire him as my first AD because he's already like going to be better than me.
He's on
like,
it. Yeah. It's nothing is going to fall through those cracks.
Oh,
yeah.
No, because he cares so deeply.
Yeah,
he wants it so bad. And I'm like, dude, I would much rather answer 150 questions and have you make mistakes, but you learn and your passion and everyone can feel that around him too.
Yeah.
You know, and that energy affects. That's what I think is really weird about. I think the thing that's almost the most important about directing is you're almost creating like a little like universe, and you have to be really careful with what you bring into that universe. Yeah, because one misaligned person or individual or working style can damage that sacred environment, especially for actors. I feel like it's I honestly can't. I have all the admiration and respect for you guys. I did a short film with my girlfriend where last minute she was like, okay, you have to play this part, and it was this like scene where a boyfriend and girlfriend were fighting, and the only way I could get to where she needed me to be for it was to just like imagine my parents dying on a flight, you know, and like just like for like a week, I was like damaged from it.
Oh.
And she's like, well, yeah, that's because like we actually have a process where we don't have to like hurt ourselves to get
there every time.
Yeah, and so I think since that, and just also doing some acting classes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what you guys are just like in wardrobe and in hair, and the AD's coming in and yelling about time, and like the lens isn't working also, and then
to just go.
yeah, and action, give me that
Yeah.
award-winning performance right now.
And then do it 10 more times. Oh, and sorry, we're actually going to use it for the close up next.
Focus was off.
Yeah,
Let's go again.
no.
Oh, that one's not going to make it in the edit, even though it's your best
Exactly.
one, you know?
Yeah.
Too bad.
Now, unfortunately, we have to wrap things up. But I want Bree to do all of the wrapping up and all of the love here.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
I loved having you on. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
One thing,
absolutely.
I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I have a lot of questions still about dropping, so we might have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
To get into the technical nitty gritty,
Yes.
because I have had the privilege of reading the script and watching the short. And for those of you that haven't seen it yet, Dropping is a fast-paced thriller that has a lot of action and movement in it. And so there's a lot happening in a short amount of time. And so technically reading that on the page and then watching it, I read it and my heart was racing and I flipped the pages very quickly, but you were able to translate that to the screen as well. And that is something I want to talk about. And it's such a special skill and a gift. And how do you do that as a director and communicate that with your crew, especially since for those that haven't seen it, it's all taking place in the woods, like 99% of it.
Yeah.
And so there's not a room where you're blocking, okay, when you hit this mark. And so, you know, shot listing, speaking with your crew. And so I'm watching this thinking, technically, how did he do that? But the majority of this conversation was about trusting your other artists in the bubble you've created.
Yeah.
So you are doing something we do at Cinematography for Actors is the creative and the technical, and combining the holistic aspects of the art and love and your community with the technical to create something that is extremely powerful and effective for an audience.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
This has been another episode of the CFA podcast, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Join us in bridging the gap between talent and crew. Start by subscribing on your preferred podcast platform, sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on vendor discounts, community events, and new podcast releases, and educate yourself through our free course releases on YouTube. It all starts at cinematographyforactors.com. And if you like this episode, consider leaving a review to make it easier for other listeners to find us.